All right, guys, let's talk about gluten. Everybody's confused about gluten. I want to clarify a few things. I'm going to try and keep it really short, but I do want to make it a holistic view that it doesn't just talk about gluten per se. I'll explain in a minute. Okay, so what is gluten? Gluten is a protein, and is a protein found in most grains, namely wheat. Protein allows building and stretching. So you have seen when you make bread, for example, you have that stretchiness into the dough. That's from the gluten. Gluten-free options like rice, millet, sorghum, teff, oats, if they're not contaminated, they are naturally gluten-free, then they won't stretch. Then we consider other things that are grains, but actually are not grains, such as quinoa, buckwheat. Those are pseudograins. So that means they are actually seeds. Gluten is a protein, so it can trigger the immune system. So for people who have celiac disease, which is 1% of the population globally, which means you cannot even ingest gluten without having an immune response, a lot of inflammation. I mean, it's systematic. In that case, gluten has to be avoided 100% at all times. For people that have sensitivities, it's not deadly, but it can cause a lot of issues. And so we have to find out, why do we have a sensitivity to it? Sometimes it could be an underlying condition such as Hashimoto's, so that there's another autoimmune disease in play, and the trigger from a gluten becomes obvious. For most people, however, it's not a problem. But some sensitivities could also be the fact that we have dysbiosis, so the gut is not in the right condition, so certain things will impact us. When we understand the reason, we understand why, we try and fix the root cause. So again, if you don't have a true allergy, you're not allergic. But you could have a sensitivity to it. And now this is going to go into the realm of epidemiological conversation. A lot of people think it might be regional, because they might react in one country. We're going to say the US. People that react really badly to grains in the US will come to Europe on holiday. Here they will have some bread and nothing happens. Now, it could be the fact that we grow grains in different ways. So there is a theory that could explain two things here. One, grains in certain countries are sprayed heavily with glyphosate. It will kill anything that is on the plant. If it does on the plant, it's quite possible that it affects our gut and kills our bacteria. In that case, well, yeah, we're going to have problems, because now we're going to be in a state of dysbiosis. When we have dysbiosis, we have also inflammation, so we can react to a protein such as gluten. If we are also considering how grains are grown, generally, especially organic and biodynamically grown, grains are grown to a full growth, and then they cut down. So they become 2-3 meters high, then they cut down. But in commercial grain productions, we are becoming more efficient by having these plants only grow halfway and then cutting them down. That could possibly impact how much gluten there is in that bit of plant versus a normal traditionally grown plant. So there are these kind of conversations going on. We're not 100% sure. We do know that pesticides and herbicides like glyphosate can impact our gut, and there are many other issues other than gut, but it could be possibly this. You can have gluten-free options, and in this case I mentioned teff, millet. Those are naturally gluten-free, and then there are the pseudograins, and so you can enjoy it and it won't impact your gut. So let's go talk about these store-bought products. What happens when you go to the store and you buy gluten-free this and gluten-free that? There is this assumption that gluten-free means healthy. Gluten-free absolutely does not mean healthy. If you go to a store and buy the bread and you look and it's gluten-free, pre-packaged, which make it actually quite processed, it can be on shelf forever, and you look at the ingredients, it's scary. I just mentioned I made gluten-free bread with one ingredient, which is a pseudograin called buckwheat, and you go to the store and they say buckwheat bread, and then you see at the back of it, and it's a massive amount of junk and ingredients that you really couldn't use in your kitchen. That is a super processed food. It's an ultra processed food. If you cannot make it in your kitchen, try not to eat it. It's just as simple as that. So processing is not necessarily bad. It's necessary sometimes so that we can consume the food. But ultra processed food is a different story. Ultra processed food is these things that basically you cannot make in your kitchen. And so when you go and buy this gluten-free bread that everybody thinks is gluten-free, so it's healthy for me, it might be a trap, because it might have ingredients in there that you cannot even buy in a commercial, in a supermarket. Once we have that understanding, once we understand all this, it makes it easier for us to navigate what to buy. And also to navigate that something that just because it says it's gluten-free is not necessarily healthy. So we have biscuits and cakes that are gluten-free, but they come with a pack of sugar and lots of fats, and they're not going to be healthy for us. It's really important to understand ingredients list, and this is with everything. We talk about it a lot. Now, what about women and grains? As a woman in my 40s, I've noticed that even something I loved like brown rice, I can't tolerate it anymore. So I don't actually eat any grains. I barely eat pseudograins. I eat them occasionally. I eat seeds like chia seeds and hemp seeds for protein and for good fats, but I generally don't have bread. I sometimes will allow myself to have some quinoa if I hadn't had it for a while, but I rely on things that are more starchy from potatoes, for example. For me, the grains don't work at all, even if they are gluten-free like millet. It just doesn't work. But for some people, they might work, and so do pay attention. When it comes to flours, however, and this is why even a gluten-free bread from a bakery might not work for you as a woman in perimenopause to postmenopause, is that flour has been ground down. So it's more processed than anything else. It's been stripped generally of its husk and bran to make it last more on the shelf, and therefore it causes more issues than not with our blood sugar as we become more insulin resistant, and it also causes issue with the gut. But there are solutions around this. I mentioned the buckwheat bread. I also have Ezekiel bread, and those are made with sprouted grains and some pulses. So it's nice to have those options. But again, for a woman from perimenopause to postmenopause, I generally take out the bread and just focus, if you want to have it, on making it yourself in the way that I explained how I did the sourdough with the buckwheat, the sprouted buckwheat, and try to navigate the essentials and needs of the food that you want to have. If you are celiac, you cannot have it. If you have autoimmune diseases, you may not be able to have it for different reasons. If you have dysbiosis, let's fix your gut and notice if you're reacting to the same grain in different regions, and we may assume that the reason is what we mentioned here, the way that the grain is grown or sprayed, and just navigate and find solutions that are good for you. I'm going to put a list of all the grains that contain gluten, that are gluten-free in the caption, as well as the pseudograins, so that you have options that you can look at. But as always, be kind to yourself, listen to your body. I know we love bread, but it just doesn't work, especially for us women in perimenopause to postmenopause. We have to just be okay with it. It is life. But there are such an array of amazing food that we can have out there that it really doesn't prevent us from being healthy and satiated and abundant in our food. So talk to you soon. Bye.